welcome to Kumba Software DPAA tutorials. This tutorial is about how to delete objects using the DataPower Administrator's Assistant. So be sure to set your video playback to high definition, and though some visual details of DPAA may have changed since this video was created, the functionality will be the same. To start this demonstration, we're selecting a couple of appliances here, and we've created the domain where we can just demonstrate deleting objects for this video. We're going to delete a couple of different kind of objects to show you some of the simple delete and advanced delete capabilities of DPAA. I'm going to start by selecting these two logging categories, or as displayed in DPAA as log labels. Then I just can use the hamburger menu to delete the selected objects. From here, I have some options we will go over later. And on this screen, we have additional options we will discuss later. When I select Next, and this is just a simple delete of objects, just to delete them simply, I have a number of options here. One that's important to us right away is the ability to export the objects I'm going to delete. So if I select this button, DPAA exports these configurations first, and then it just exported them, and then I can safely delete them. Other options on this screen will be discussed later. I'm going to go ahead and select Finish because these options are here, these objects are here to be deleted. So I've now deleted those two log labels, and the feedback on the screen indicates that I have deleted these two objects, and you can see the domain is saying it needs to be saved. So I can save the domain. And now I've saved the domain across different appliances, and in a few seconds, yes, this disappears to indicate that the domain has been saved. If I search now, you can see that those two objects are in fact gone. Now, if I needed to restore them later from my export, I could do that. A more advanced use case of delete is when you go to delete complex objects like multi-protocol gateways, and in this case, this is what we're going to do. So I've selected the objects I want to delete. I press my right mouse button, and then I'm going to select Delete Selected Objects. DPAA is going to give me the ability to go ahead and cascade my deletes, which means, do I want to delete only the multi-protocol gateway, or do I want to delete the multi-protocol gateway and its referenced objects, that is the entire object tree? So I have the ability to cascade deletes down that tree. The other option that's available to me if we are cascading deletes is the ability to delete files that are also referenced by the various objects within or referenced by these complex objects. So I'm going to go ahead and select that so we can demonstrate other features, but suffice it to say, I can delete the entirety of everything and clean up files and references so we don't have items left behind in our appliances. I'm going to select Next. We're going to come back to this screen again, mainly to show you how easy it is to build this screen. But what this screen is about is it gives us the ability to not have to always veto deletes. We'll show you this in a moment, but I can build what's called delete exceptions. And what this means is DPAA will look at this data and then automatically reject or veto the deletion of these objects on the next screen. So let me demonstrate this. A very good example of this is certificate files. Since we sent a cascade down all the way to the file objects, we don't likely always want to delete some certificate files. So I can add a row and I can say, look, I don't care what appliance this is on, and maybe I don't even care what domain it is in. The object type could matter. I can type file if I want it to be there. And then I can say, you know what? If the file contains or starts with cert, well, maybe I can even, this is a regular expression, so I can go as far as say pub or shared, cert. So in other words, what I'm effectively saying here is if a file name begins with pub or shared cert, then in any domain of any appliance, I want to automatically exempt that from the delete. So it saves, it's an object-safe expression. I'm going to save this, and there's not a lot of feedback for that saving, and also, if you click Next, it will save any changes you've made here as well. I'm going to select Next, and what DPAA is going to do is it's going to look at those two multi-protocol gateways, and it's going to navigate down the hierarchy of all the objects that are in those multi-protocol gateways and referenced by them, and it's going to mark them for delete. Now, we didn't happen to have any certificates referenced there, but we do have some interesting cases here where we have objects that are in our files in the store directory. We probably never want to delete those files. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these 3 files, and I'm going to go up here, and on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a button that I can select that will add those objects to the delete exceptions. So what you may notice now is these are marked in a different color, and in fact, they're also marked here because it doesn't matter mainly which appliance we're talking about here. We don't ever want to delete those. Let's go back one and take a look at this screen and see that DPAA has built some expressions for us to say, look, let's not ever delete these 3 files. But like what we did for certificates, we could also do for these files. I can take this out, though it wouldn't be necessary. I can leave all 3 of these fields as they are developed, but then I can come back and I can say, you know what, if the file starts with store, then let's not delete it. And then I can take these 2 rows away, which allows me to have more generic expressions. Every field is a regular expression. And again, if I click Next, we can see now, oh, there's another file that shows up selected here as protected, meaning it's in green. Now, we have the ability to override that by turning it on, and if the checkbox for delete is selected, it will delete that file, but generally speaking, it will be automatically removed from all future delete actions you make using DPAA because this persists beyond your current session and your current delete action. There are other objects that we may not want to remove either. Where we're talking about files, well, we can also come back and say, you know what, I don't think I want objects that are named default to be removed. So I don't want that object, I don't want that object, and so on and so forth. So I can add those to the delete exceptions so that they won't be included. I might want something like this to generally be, if we have a standard naming convention for a match-all matching expression, then again we may want to exhibit this in general. So you can see how quickly we can build our exceptions while we're looking at this particular screen. And again, I have some more that I may want to remove and say, you know what, I don't want to delete those. Now, there's another way that we can go in and select things to say, I don't want to delete those things in this screen or in this action that I'm performing. So if I say, you know what, I don't want to delete this style policy action, I can turn that off. And you'll also notice this is the get resource rule set there. And down here, we can see that the get resource rule set there is also unselected. This has nothing to do with the exceptions in this case. It has to do with I have this checkbox, Synchronize, delete choices, turned on. So if I select this one, and there's another one on a different appliance referenced by the same object tree, it will be unselected as well. I can turn this off, and I can say, no, I want to delete this one. And you can see it's going bad, but this one is still selected because I turned off the synchronizing features. Another feature we have is we can just select all objects, thus overriding any protections we might have from the delete exceptions, and I can decide to maybe select none, but clearly if I do there's nothing, will be deleted. So I'm going to select all and show you something that happens. I'm going to go back. I'm going to look at the screen a little bit, and then I'm going to go back, and I'm going to say, okay, let me review. Every time you come from this screen to this screen, DPAA will reapply any delete exceptions that are in the previous screen. And this is just as a precaution to ensure that you are intentionally overriding any of these selections, because I can override this, okay? But I may not, it wants to try to ensure that you're not inadvertently allowing it to be deleted. So I have all this selected, and one nice thing DPAA does is it deletes things in the order presented. So let's take a look at this first appliance and this multi-protocol gateway. And we're going to be removing this web server, but then the next thing it does is it deletes the web server policy, and then the style policy rule, and then another rule, and then a reference file. And in each case, you can see what type is being referenced, what type that is being referenced by, and what's the name of the object referencing it. So you can see in these two cases, we have two things, two objects being referenced by a style policy named web server policy. DPAA deletes things in this order to prevent the error that DataPower would otherwise give you, stating you can't delete this object because it's being referenced by another object. So it deletes from the top down so that we don't run into that problem. So now I'm going to select Finish, and DPAA is going to go about removing the objects and their references down the hierarchy tree. And as you can see, we're getting okay. We're not being told that this object is being referenced by another object. However, with that said, and while it's working, if one of these objects were being referenced by, say, another multi-protocol gateway or another style or policy referenced by another process or another service, then it would not be diluted even by DPAA, even though DPAA might be trying to remove that. So it's still protected by DataPower, but DPAA makes it easy to delete what you want to be deleted or you think you want to be deleted by deleting down the hierarchy tree. So that's all we have in this video. If you have other questions or comments or want to learn more, you can go out to www.kumbasoft.com and you can go to the Features and Tutorials page there and learn all about all the other features DPAA has. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.